Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. That music at the very beginning very nearly blended in perfectly with the game. It's kind of one of the advantages of playing the Supreme Commander soundtrack before Supreme Commander. Alright, we're diving into the Galaxy Cup Qualifier Round 3. This is going to be a little bit smaller of a tournament roundup, I think, because most of the major players have already competed and gotten the slot if they so choose. We may be having technical difficulties in the background that require a rehost, but we'll just carry on as if nothing is happening for the moment. Right now, we're in round 1, of course, on the winner's bracket, since we have no losers right now. Bulldozer Noob is on the left-hand side, Platinumizer is on the right, and unless this is a rename of someone that I have met before, this is the first time I've seen this person. These guys are basically even ranked in both ladder and multiplayer. Platinumizer has drawn Seraphim, and Bulldozer has drawn Cybran. Now, the map is called Cadmium Green, and it is something else that I don't really have much experience with, but holy kashmolis, look at the reclaim. There are these two massive craters with huge piles of rocks, as well as a pile of rocks in the base, just in front of the base, and a reasonably wide assortment of mass extractors scattered across the map. Now, I think one of the reasons for all of this reclaim is that there's only 6 mass extractors in the quote-unquote safe position on the other side. This is a 10-kilometer map, so bombers will probably come into play, and perhaps there will be an extended T2 phase, because we do have Seraphim around. I don't know exactly what we'll see rolling. Probably some early T3 from Bulldozer, but we'll just have to wait and see. Here comes second land factory for Platinumizer. He is queuing up another land factory on the front as well, and it looks like he's getting ready to drop a pretty good selection of air factories. As the game goes on, do have some manual reclaim through on the tree clumps. Of course, that is a very important part of the early build and something that will let him get out that early air factory as quickly as he possibly can. On the other side of the map, Bulldozer is already 2 land factories deep into his build, starting the air factory long before Platinumizer. So he is going to get some very early production online. And, sorry, I got distracted by the chat for a minute. I thought something had broken, but apparently not. We do have a little bit of early aggression moving out. I do like that there is now some reclaim going down for Platinumizer. I think one of the things that got Bulldozer ahead was the fact that he focused his build power more closely to the core of his base and bit into the reclaim significantly sooner than his opponent did. That's a pretty dang important thing to do when you're trying to get as many land units as possible out as early as possible. Bulldozer going for what looks like it could have potentially been an additional air build in another life, but he has forgotten about that thing and just gone strewing power generators around with a random, yeah, that is an energy storage there in the middle, so he will be getting the ability to possibly land an overcharge, maybe just save up a little bit and get a T2 or a gun upgrade off of some of that trickling overflow you get over time. And for now, both players are just going to shoot out some air scouts, see what the other guy is doing, and we'll slowly but surely get our footing and move out. Platinumizer building a handful of land factories. That's going to give him a total of 7, although I think you're going to need quite a few more than that for a decent amount of map control. Bulldozer also dropping 8 land factories, so already one ahead in the queue, and look at the amount of early units that he has compared to Platinumizer, and that is mostly due to the fact that he has doubled down on the early land and had his factories placed significantly sooner than his opponent. These reclaim fields are going to play a major role, I think, because you figure, what, that's 100 reclaim right there, times at least 20, so this is 2,500-ish reclaim on each of the large patches. That is enough by itself for almost 3 T2 mass extractor upgrades, a T2 HQ, and the first couple of tanks for basically free. It is going to get crazy around here if these guys can dip into that mass and then push the units early. Got a little bit of an engagement over here, not much of one. It is 4-to-1 odds in favor of the Cybran, so those Thams are going to fall. Gonna inflict one casualty, but not going to be stopped. Over on the other side, the same thing is happening again. So Bulldozer just bullying his opponent down with that superior number of Mantis. Tham not even gonna try for it. What can a single tank do in the face of such odds after all? Platinumizer's gonna have to recoil a little bit, let his units clump up, and hope for the best on the next engagement. Platinumizer is pulling ahead in the score. That means he's probably got some kind of shenaniganery going down. We do have, well, quite a substantial amount of power anyway. Still only one air factory. I'm almost thinking that, yep, there it is. A T2 mass extractor has begun, and I would love to see this be queued for a T2 land push, because I think he does have plenty of power, and Ilshavas would put him in a really solid spot. He is continuing to pull out ahead due to the expansions happening on the left side. He has pretty much lost right side map control, but you will notice that Bulldozer is much slower about claiming his outside mass extractors, focusing instead on what's happening in his base. This is going to give him a little bit lower of a score at the onset, but with the increasing numbers of land factories that he's placing all around the map, this will end up working out pretty well for him, I do believe. Platinumizer sucking down his expansion aggressively. Bulldozer nowhere near the amount of engineers on those rocks. If we take a look back at the base, he is not getting a mass extractor upgrade nor a T2 HQ, so his mass is strictly going into the production of more build power and more tanks. This ACU needs to be relatively careful. Definitely not enough units at this point in the game to kill the commander, but if he sheds too much HP early, that could be a little rough for him as the game goes on. Oh, there is a drop with engineers coming in to pick up even more mass. Platinumizer doing a very good job of showing up his opponent in those reclaim numbers. Speaking of which, we should probably go check those momentarily. We do have a completed T2 mass extractor. We've got a couple of E-storages going down in the back, and all in all, things are looking halfway decent, except for this little guy right here, who is going to get all the way around into the back, probably score maybe a mass extractor kill. We'll see how long it takes him to react, although he is sending his units north. I see you gathering over there. We'll see if that guy is able to kill this. He might be able to move down to the south, kill those engineers and the energy storage in the rear. Platinumizer appears to have noticed finally. He's moving a handful of tanks over in that direction to kill the raid, but not in time to save that mass extractor. Platinumizer getting a well-timed point defense down, because if his ACU were all alone versus that quantity of Mantis, he might actually be in trouble. But focus fire down the Medusas, everything ought to be a-okay. Another ACU coming in for the battle. I really hope we don't see an early kill on Platinumizer, because he is rather exposed at the moment. But we're just going to have a little confidence in his ability to protect his commander, whether that is misplaced or not. Platinumizer at a solid 4,600 reclaim, 31 per tick, and 520 on his steady income, 29 and 580 with 4,500 reclaimed. Bulldozer is actually running neck and neck. I think Platinumizer is increasing more towards the mid game, where Bulldozer picked up a lot of his mass in the very early portions of the game. Let's get back out to the main view here. And on the north side, there's an attempted run by, but unfortunately Platinumizer just not in possession of large enough tank numbers to make a meaningful hit on that northern edge. He is, however, going to be able to deny access to these rocks for just a little while longer. I do like the point defense up over here. Kind of cuts off access to the mass extractors there. A little bit of a safe expansion, and oh no. Oh, dearie, dearie me, Platinumizer, you have misstepped indeed. That, I think, is a dead ACU. Well, crap. Hello, Killishi. Appreciate the bits, man. And Platinumizer is going to go up in a ball of flames. It's just a matter of time. We made it 9 minutes into the game, saw a couple of really good builds, saw some very impressive unit production from Bulldozer, and Platinumizer, I think, is not going to be able to save his own buttocks. This looks like something that I would do. In fact, something that I have done repeatedly over the course of my ladder career. Do well, get a handle on the map, get ahead in score, make some mass extractors, maybe even get up to T2, and then needlessly throw away the ACU when there was no purpose in it. Well played to both of these guys. Of course, the better of the match going to Bully Dozer, who's going to move forward in the winner's bracket. Platomizer is going to drop to the losers. I think our takeaway from this match is more land factories. I don't know. Anyway, we've got Inspector Cot and Allig. This is a Cybern versus UEF matchup. Allig on the left, Inspector Cot on the right. So a pretty freaking normal game indeed. The two better balanced factions versus each other going head to head. Allig is going to drop many power generators around that first mass extractor, most likely planning on an early T2 mechs. So he's going to take advantage of this huge map size as far as land spam maps are concerned and try to get some early eco in. I'm not sure how well that'll work. We saw last time around that one of the players was able to convert all that early reclaim into an overwhelming tide of Mantis and just plow his opponent under. Inspector Cot appears to be going for second land factory, so perhaps somewhat of a similar build. We do have third air factory, Hydro going down. No, we've already got a brave little engineer that is moving in to reclaim on the rocks. Now, that was a very long reach, and that is case in point the advantage that you get attack moving an engineer. That would be alt right click from the factory as this order is queued here. So those engineers are going to be able to reclaim on a pretty freaking huge radius. I think it's roughly double the amount that you get in the normal yellow circle. Allig on the other side is going for a transport. What on earth do you have planned there? That makes very little sense. Unless he's going to drop engineers out. Odd. Okay, so he's moving to the right with the transport. Perhaps he will be able to do something useful with this. Let's take a look back down here. Normal expansion for Inspector Cot. Yes, indeed. Okay, so he is dropping into the back side of the crater with all of these rocks out here. I'm halfway curious. He might just be sending those out in order to get land factories online. That he is indeed. 3 land factories, a radar, and then a 4th land factory. So he's skipping over the disadvantage you get walking engineers to the front in order to get your build power up by dropping them. That is going to put him drastically behind at the onset. However, if he is able to secure this, he is going to get all the mass he needs to make up that difference later on in the game. We've got 2 tanks out versus 4 Mantis. That appears to be all that's happening on the front, and with the additional land factories going down, there should be no difficulty whatsoever in supplying his needs. We are in a little bit of a mass stall, so he needs to get some reclaim in order to get those factories producing and win out. 1 Mantis goes down, a little bit of micro brings those into a better reach. We've got Mantis focusing on the engineers instead of the tanks, which is going to give them the upper hand that they need. Oh no, we've still got a victory for the Mantis because of poor targeting. Critical health on one, half health on the other, and that is the end of that engagement. We do have an engineer up on the front line for Inspector Cot. We'll see these things move forward slowly, and a raid on the other hand. Very interesting early game play. I'm not sure whether Allig is going to be able to maintain this, though, seeing his critical lack of mass. He's also not expanding very well. 25 solid income to 17 with 300 power versus 260. Not exactly the most fantastic place to be in all of history, but hopefully he'll be able to make it up. We've already got 4 land factories in addition to the original. And then we have 3 air factories in total for Inspector Cot. So we're going to see a very strong air presence from him, most likely spurred on by the knowledge that there are transports about and an early air play in progress. So he is going to try to snuff that out as quickly as he possibly can. And we've also got Mantis moving on those expansion mexes that are already down. I love the point defense up on the front line. That is going to put a little bit of a stall on that progress from the ACU. He is just going to sit there and take that down blow by blow, losing about 75% of his HP in the process, but that is going to leave a large quantity of Mantis and the ACU in this corner. So Inspector is going to win control of the rocks on both sides of the map. That is terrible to see, and Allig is left to play catch up. I think Allig may be able to take this over as long as he does not get Mantis swarmed, but he desperately needs to be bringing online land factories in his home base because he is about to lose out on this. Oh, Inspector caught firing through the factory somehow, just barely not colliding with the hitbox on that, down to about 50% HP on that ACU as the engineers struggle to get more point defense down in the rear, trying to deny this area for as long as possible, being relatively successful at it, but at what cost? Allig clearing up the last of those pesky units on the left-hand side, hopefully not seeing the overextension that we did on the last game, and still struggling to recover from all the run-bys that are still taking place on this map. Might lose a T1 Mass Extractor over on that side, but 2 tanks coming in to hopefully save the day, killing that Mantis in a run-by spat of violence and carrying on with their mission to assist the ACU. Inspector caught down to a desperate level of HP, 1700, managed to gain a veterancy, but took a huge blow from those 2 point defense on the north side. That was almost the end of him, but he was able to pull free. The Cybern regen should do very well for him in the next few minutes, bringing that ACU back up to combat readiness. Looking at the 3 air factories down here, it's quite surprising that Allig is still able to hold a meager grasp on air control, though, yeah, flimsy at best. Looks like we've got a 2nd air factory down here with ye old bug, with 1 building, 5 reclaiming, and just not quite able to do it in Allig's base. Hopefully he notices that very soon, because that is a drain on the economy.
Under attack.
We do have the 2 air factories producing, so hopefully he doesn't fall too behind in air. And if we move around back to the observer's mode, we can see a couple of land factories down around Allig. However, this is looking a little bit bad, and he does not have intel. This is exactly what kills me on a lot of occasions. There's a 30-something Mantis right away from your ACU, and you have absolutely no idea what is in the area. Actually closer to 15 Mantis, so that ACU should be fine at least for the time being. And now, of course, it is scouted, and it is being bombed. We've got Jesters on the north side, Inspector caught using those gunships to try and harass the factories. Jesters, I'm not sure if they actually aim for the center of the factory. They might be able to lock the UEF land factories, but at the very least, they will eradicate one of the T1 point defenses as Inspector Cott starts wading back into the fight at about 4,500 HP. He has plenty of units to assist him with. Allig taking a fair bit of fire from these Mantis as he moves around the backside of the factories in order to get a good bit of meat shield in between him and those pesky Mantis. Hopefully he doesn't lose too much HP here, because that could be devastating for him in the end, as Inspector Cott continues to grow his unstoppable ball of Mantis. We do notice that Allig is actually up on eco now, 717 power and 37 mass income. He has not yet gone for that T2 mass extractor, so the plan has been abandoned, but he does have a little bit better handle on map control overall. That is a fleeting thought, though, since we do see Inspector Cott punching through the center, taking mass extractors as he goes. That is going to leave Allig open, though, to perform a pincer maneuver on the ACU. Hopefully Inspector Cott doesn't fall for such a thing. He is moving back towards the center of the map, but Allig now has close to the critical mass necessary to push all of this away. I do hope that Allig stops the queue on these plasma cannons, because that is a whole lot of mass to be wasting on something that will probably be killed by a combination of T1 bombers and T1 mobile artillery. We do have now the full force moving towards the south side, collapsing on this ACU. Allig might be in a pickle here. I am hoping that he doesn't lose out in the same way our last competitor did, just to a swarm of T1. The one thing that I do see that's good is that I don't believe there's any Medusas whatsoever in this entire mix. So this point defense is going to do some work, let me tell ya. He is vacating that ACU as quickly as possible, spraying the units with napalm with those bombers up in the air, hopefully reducing the number of Mantis before they hit the ACU. This hero point defense taking down 13 Mantis before it finally falls. And T1 bombers continuing to harass. Allig now running back towards the south as he sees these units moving towards the north. Inspector Cott, I don't believe, has any exact intel on where the ACU is located, so he is just going to run blindly upwards, wasting valuable time as another point defense, oh, so precariously misplaced. That thing is clinging to the side of the cliff, unable to fire at most of the units coming by. Allig now in the base with those units. He saw the opportunity, and by golly, he took it on the right-hand edge, killing off. It's things that Inspector Cott is not in a position to lose. We've got mass extractors going down, build power going down. Inspector Cott now not in possession of enough units to get the reclaim he needs to power those factories. It is down to this very last push. I don't think there's enough T1 left, as Inspector Cott falls in range of the T1 tanks to the north. Allig playing that incredibly well and very safely, getting a vet on his ACU and parking it in the center of the crater next to a handful of point defense as he collapses from all sides on Inspector Cott. I was about to say his ACU is defenseless, but it does have quite the cannon indeed on it, just not able to bring the HP to the fight. I am not defeated yet. I think that you had better retract that statement, Inspector Cott, because you look pretty dang dead to me. Well freaking played from both these guys. That was a well-fought match. Pleasure to watch, and congrats to Allig for moving on into the winner's bracket round 2. Moving up to round 2, we're on the open palms. Our competitors are God King Xerxes and Thomas Heat. Pretty decently well matched versus each other, I must say. And we've got UEF on the one side, and we have Thomas Heat on the other side with Aeon. Jaden, appreciate the sub, man, very much. So Aeon typically carries a pretty hefty advantage in close quarters land combat due to their tanks just being blatantly OP. They have the range, they have the damage. Yes, they are absolutely paper once you get to close range, and they die to T1 bombers relatively easily, but open palms, though it be a 10-kilometer map, puts you within about 5K of each other. So it's going to be an uphill battle for God King Xerxes at the start. He's got to overcome the odds, whether by pillars or sheer land spam. And then moving into the later portion of the game, UEF will have a distinctive advantage, taking for granted that you can survive the Auroras and the Harbinger Rush. So we'll have to see how this plays out and how well these two players handle each other. We've got the Hydro going down for God King. He is laying in a total of 5 power generators and a second land factory simultaneous to this build up here. One thing you do need to realize when you're organizing your builds on open palms is that you can get a pretty substantial amount of manual reclaim. Little bit of a power stall, but it's coming right in with the mass stall. I really hope that he sees that. There is the Hunter. We've got the tank moving in to try and save those engineers as the flare dodges, but unfortunately it is not enough. The engineer stays alive. A good move from Thomas Heat, but ill-fated from the start. This is pretty typical, so if you're able to get an advanced combat unit across quickly enough, you may be able to snipe off the engineer that is building the Hydro and shut down your opponent's early build. Very, very smart moves. But carrying on with what I was saying, you've got power reclaim in the clumps over here of trees, as well as some rocks, and then you've got a pretty substantial amount of rocks wrapping around the outside edge of your expansion. It's the same thing in reverse. on this side. So you're able to get up quite a substantial amount of early build power and some early units just off of the reclaim, even though you only have the 4 mass extractors in your base. So be mindful of that when you are planning your builds. Another thing, God King, 2 land factories, 1 air on the hydro, 2 land factories, 1 air on the hydro, with 4 and 5 power generators respectively. When you see 2 highly rated players doing the exact same thing in a 1 versus 1, you could take it to the bank that it's probably a good idea for you to do too. So I would encourage you to watch replays like this one. Try to copy your early builds from them, maybe the first 3 minutes or so. After 3 minutes, things are usually pretty flexible. That first 2.5 minutes or so, the first 2 to 3 factories, the placement of the engineers, the placement of the labs, that is the most critical portion of the early phase, and then it moves on more towards grand scale combat. We do have a mobile anti-air out, which is a little bit of an odd move, I would say, but it will prevent the early bomber that might come from this side from killing the expansioneer that's headed over to the left. The other thing that is going to keep that safe is the Striker that is moving forward. So Striker versus Aurora. Aurora will win if kited due to the land scout that is accompanying it, but you can see if that tank is able to get in range, the Aurora is dodging like mad. That twitch movement, a royal pain in the butt. If timed correctly, it is going to win with 20 HP remaining. Of course, during the larger scale engagements, you don't have the time to micro the Auroras on an individual basis like that, although the twitch movement of an entire army is still useful in some instances. But you can see how strong the Auroras are in the early stages. Got more tanks moving over to the left, hopefully going to keep that engineer high and dry. And then God King Xerxes dropping a point defense next to the mass extractors on his right side expansion, something that he can also retreat to with his ACU should it become necessary. That's the dangerous thing about the Auroras as well. They outrange your commander, which I'm sure you've heard 100 times before. I know this is old news to some of you, but for those of you who are newer around these parts, Auroras do outrange ACUs by a couple of ticks, which means you can't shoot back. They're faster than you as well. So perfectly microed Auroras will never get hit by the ACU, but will deal full Tech 1 tank damage to that commander, and that can be a nasty way to end a game in the early stages. Attack moved Auroras are nasty to overcome. We do have Land Factory numero 5 going down. That's going to be accompanied by some extra power generators. God King doing a pretty decent job with his eco balance, actually, in the negatory on both and compensating with reclaim. He is at about 972, let's call it 1,000 reclaim. Thomas hit at 1,400. Good lord, man. You have done a substantial amount of work with those manual reclaim orders. Thomas is also pretty drastically ahead on power. He's overbuilt, some might say, but then again, when your intent is to go for a gun upgrade, well, power overflow is a good thing indeed. You can also build your storage after you get done with your upgrades, and then that will provide you the means to abuse overcharge like a madman as you wade through the enemy forces. So yes, good things to be had all the way around. We've got a T2 mass extractor up pretty dang early. God King Xerxes exhibiting a fairly decent lead in economy overall, although not by a safe enough amount to negate Thomas Heat's reclaim advantage. Always build a factory in the back here, folks. Probably a radar and a point defense as well, because this is a pretty popular run-by location. I'm kind of surprised that neither player has gone for the outside plateaus yet. Although now that I say that, there is a freshly constructed land factory right down here coming online that is going to be able to scatter units far and wide across the plateau, hopefully securing control of those 3 mass extractors as well as all of the rocks and tree clumps upon that tabletop. The other thing that's good about this is you can build a few T1 artillery, and you can push them right over here and hit these 2 mexes, possibly that one, and anything that your opponent has been so careless to build over on this expansion. That is something to keep in mind as you're playing this. God King Xerxes building his land factories on the left side instead of the right. You don't really want to have a whole lot in range of that plateau, because inevitably it's going to die to something incredibly stupid shooting it from above. We do have our first sets of land engagement here. Thomas Heat is going to be in control of 49 Auroras, and look how many Land Scouts he has hooked in to his forces. That is a critical thing in addition to your radar coverage when you are fighting as Aeon. So that is going to be 33 strikers versus 50 Auroras. Not only are the Auroras stronger, but we do have a numerical advantage to the gray side. So Thomas Hiet is looking primed for an excellent position at the beginning of this game. I don't know what the compensation here is going to be. A lot of times, pillar spam is the way to go on open palms. It is ridiculously strong and easily able to compensate for the Aurora advantage in most cases, but I don't see the T2 factory coming up. God King does have over 10 mass lead per tick on his opponent and has caught up in the power game. Just not seeing that move to the next HQ. I think that this one has been stopped. That is probably going to go T2. We'll check back in just a second to make sure. And on the right side, I see a flak. That means that, yes, there is a T2 HQ online for Thomas Hiet. He is going for a T2 power generator followed by a single well-placed TMD, which will hopefully protect everything in his base. And then we've got the energy storage is going down to enable this combat commander to be used to its greatest possible potential. We've got the double gun going down, another decent choice if you are so inclined at the T2 to T3 phase. If you get the increased optics in place of the gun damage specifically on the ACU, that allows your ACU to always have good omni and visual coverage, so you're never caught out alone. And it will still let you have the reach to abuse your overcharges on the T2 units. At the T1 phase, the damage upgrade is probably better because it does double the damage output versus T1, which are pretty susceptible to the things. But moving on into the later tech phases, not so much. We've also got gun upgrade going down on God King's Commander. An excellent choice indeed versus the Aeon, because every single T1 unit, except maybe the anti-air, yes, the anti-air, is a one-shot kill with the UEF ACU, which means that it is very damage efficient. Thomas Hiet will be overshooting sometimes by multiple bullets at the farthest reach of his range. You can see he fires an extra shot that is in the air at the death of each unit. That was actually 2 shots wasted on that one, whereas the UEF only wastes, what, 60 damage per overkilled tank? And 50 damage per overkilled artillery. So much better off in this specific scenario, even though it does have weaknesses versus other factions on the UEF ACU. Thomas Hiet wading in maybe a little too deep on this. He is getting hit hard by those T1 units, going down to about 3/4 HP, but he does have a veteran, so he's got that little bit of extra health. He's got the tanks around him. Hopefully he'll be able to overcharge his way out of that one. This would be a beautiful overcharge on this side. 7 to 8 units simultaneously if he lands that hit. There it is. That's going to be 6 kills. Not quite perfect, but I think we had a collision there. And he is going to continue to wade backwards, but he may have misplaced all his units. He's got the second veterancy at 5k HP, but falling fast and not able to vet quickly enough. The focus fire is in now. Thomas forced to walk a little closer to his opponent. This is going to take some very careful stepping indeed, and he needs another good overcharge. He's 2/3 of the way to the next veterancy, standing still under Lobo fire. That is going to hurt as he falls below 500 HP, 300 work regen. You got 22 per tick. There's the overcharge for the veterancy as he climbs back above 3,000 HP by the skin of his teeth, but he has lost some serious ground on the northern edge. Thankfully, he does have a couple of point defense online that should be able to slow down these T1 tanks. Already lost one. Will probably lose the expansion. Dang, that was close. But now he's got OP Sidians on the field, and those will be able to front for his heavily damaged ACU, allowing it a little bit of respite in order to regen. That 30 HP per tick regen will make a massive difference, and he's also been able to win air control as his opponent is building T2 gunships. These were, I am sure, intended to try and snipe that ACU off while it was low HP, But now there is flak and mobile shielding in the area, so I don't think that is an opportunity any longer. Shield upgrade is going down, 11% on that, even without the assistance. He's just going to try to get that HP on the commander to keep it safe. Remove that sniping potential as God King Xerxes moves bravely up to the front to claim this area for his very own. But I think he needs to be fairly cautious, seeing as there are 3 T2 factories online producing these obsidians, moving towards the outside edge. Now, the overcharges will be able to remove obsidians from play in a single hit. However, the shield generators are very effective versus a gun commander. If you take a look at the stats here, you've only got 144 mass in those things. That's half the cost of a tank, and the shield blocks an overcharge completely. So you basically throw those mobile shields in, and as long as you have the power to keep them up, you soak an overcharge per shield, saving between 1 and 3 T2 tanks with each shot. Definitely consider that if you are in this kind of situation. The T1 spam is serving God King barely right now, but he desperately needs to move to T2 land in order to sustain his forces, because he is going to start slowly but surely losing ground versus his opponent. We still don't have an activation on this land factory. I am really hoping that he is using this opportunity to gain some map control, gain some reclaim and mass, and will be able to push T3 much more quickly. But I am rather concerned for his health at the moment. We've got an additional T2 power generator going down, which is probably going to mean T2 air hitting the field. Swift winds, of course, going to be absolutely deadly versus God King's air. I'm going to bump this up to level 1 speed because we are a bit behind as we hit a little bit of a stagnant phase. But no, God King critically overextended, taking hits from all sides. He is in the yellow, hiding under an enemy shield generator, but unfortunately that doesn't do much for you. Time the overcharge to hit that obsidian. No! God King losing to the alpha strike damage on those obsidians. Are you kidding me? Thomas hit throwing out the obsidians moniker. They're called that for a reason. They're essentially T2 Percivals, 1 firing cycle per 4 seconds, but freaking 200 damage every single hit, and that stacks quickly, let me tell you. God King Xerxes just found that one out the hard way. Very well played from both of these guys. That was incredibly tight. I couldn't have called a winner on that until that drastic overstep by God King, but to be fair, Thomas Hiet dang near killed himself in the early game, so I guess it's tit for tat, fair is fair. Well played again. Thomas Hiet moving on through the winner's bracket. God King gonna drop down to the losers, though he was in a position to win that game potentially. Well played again. We might be able to stick with the winner's bracket all the way through. We've got Obfuscation versus Uba Yuza, who is actually, both of these guys have alternate monikers. We've got Blowdeer in the top left and Turin in the bottom right. Turin Bar, of course, the full name. I don't know why these guys prefer to use alternate names, but we'll let them have it. We do know who they are. We've got UEF on the right, Seraphim on the left, and the map is DeRosa's Sanctuary. This one is going to play out, I have no idea how, because it's different every single time I see this map. Let's press Control Shift and you can see why this is absolutely ridiculous. This is a 20, you heard me right, kilometer map. It is huge. There is a monumental amount of reclaim on both sides. Every single one of these rock clumps is worth 175 mass. There are thousands upon thousands of mass just in your corner of the map, much less on the other side. Look for both of these players topping 40 to 50,000 reclaim. Obfuscation claiming he's not good at massive reclaim for some reason. Well, we shall see. And both of these guys are going to lay in huge power grids. This is basically the only way to play this. If you don't build enough power, you die, and if you think you don't have enough, and if you think you have enough power, you don't. I have seen people build upwards of 1,200 power worth of T1 power generators on this map. Of course, at some point you do have to just bite the bullet, go T2 in order to get a T2 power generator up and sate your needs. But every single person I've ever seen play on this has done it very differently indeed. We've got expansion points, but bear in mind, there's only 7 mass extractors in each one of these corners. The reclaim is actually more important in the beginning phases of the game. So you're going to see some airdrops, you're going to see people fighting for control over those. There will be some T1 land spam, but bearing in mind that it is a 20-kilometer map, T1 quickly falls away to T2 in most cases, and T3 even more quickly. And then in the center, you've got 4 T2 power generators. Now, there's no point defense guarding this, which means if you go very, very early, I think it was actually Farms I saw that did this. I'm not 100% sure, but you can drop engineers out at the beginning. You can capture these T2 power generators, and it puts you way ahead overall on being able to spend your reclaim. The problem is you have to guard those things. If I remember correctly, he walked his ACU up and had some unit streaming from the back. I don't remember exactly. The game has been a very long time ago, but hopefully these guys will come up with some creative solutions nonetheless. Obfuscation dropping an additional 4, probably leading into an air factory. We see 5 total land factories coming into play, and only just now is he getting his 4th mass extractor, which is a weird thing to see indeed, because usually people are after mass extractors post haste. But when you've got infinite reclaim, or nearly so, well, these things become a lot less important. Uba has got an air factory online. Turin doing pretty well on that. Let's actually take a look at the reclaim numbers and the power. So we've got 440 power. He is negative, but had full storage. And look at the reclaim already at 3,000. Blodier at 4,100. Not doing quite as well on the power, but that makes sense since he is spending all of it. And then we've got multiple air factories dropping consecutively without building additional power. I think that is probably unwise. He is erasing the secondary factory and queuing T1 anti-air, possibly. I'm not entirely sure. Yes, there he is. And he will probably be laying in more power generators around the air factory. You need to T2 either the air or the land factory. I would not recommend the ACU on this map because your ACU is not going to be in a combat situation most likely, and the factory upgrade is significantly cheaper. So 440 power, 17 mass, 580 power, 11 mass, and we're probably about to see a transport coming out. There it is with 5,200 reclaim versus 6,200. So Obfuscation doing pretty well for himself at the beginning, but it does seem like Turin Bar has a little better grasp on the finesse required in managing this much economy. Perhaps Blodier will be able to make up for it in the long term through sheer brute force, but we'll have to wait and see what comes of it. That move order there is from a handful of land factories that are now going down and spewing forth T1 into the world. We've also not got a transport yet for Obfuscation, who really needs to get on the ball on that because Turin is going to claim the right side expansion uncontested and will be able to get down land factories, get the reclaim, yada yada, you know the deal. And I would not be surprised at all if, well, it depends on whether he can fish this transport out alive or not. I would not be surprised at all if he attempts to drop on the left portion of the map as well. Taking a look at the unit counts, let me get in here and hit up Obfuscation. That is going to be a total of 3 tanks. 3. Turin has 13 plus 3 artillery and a couple of snoops in there for good measure. So as far as the early production goes, we definitely have a distinct distinct advantage towards Turin, not Obfuscation. My tongue is already tied and we're only on, what, the 4th match of the game? This could be bad for the future. Transport is going to get shot down by a collection of 4 interceptors. The air factory is paused due to the desperate need for more power, and we've already got the T2 HQ underway, about 60% complete for Turin Bar. I think that the land factory probably is the better option to go for because it requires less power than even the air factory upgrade does. But look at Blodier. He is dropping the T2 on his commander instead, already at 50%. I don't know exactly what his plan is, but let's hope he has something good coming, because right now it doesn't look terribly good for him. We've got the transport bypassing a couple of interceptors. I'm not sure whether that will make it. No, it will not. Interceptor is going to get inside of it. That's going to draw out the fire of all three, and the transport will very quickly get shot out of the sky. Blodier now losing the transport, even though he had air control. Strange though that is. We've already got all T2 mass extractors in the core. Turin doing very nicely on that count. We are missing a couple for Blodier, but he is not far behind. And he's also starting to scale his own land production. We've got a good amount of T1 land factories going down in the front end, and though he was trying to expand into the mass extractors on the outside edge of his base, that is unfortunately going to get shut down quite handily. Come on, get your transport back out. That's all you need to do. Looks like we got 3 T2 power generators going down. Probably a good idea to drop a shield over those and then maybe go for a T3 air factory in order to get T3 power up. Then you can control K all the T1, recycle that mass into something a little more interesting, and hopefully have a T3 air advantage over your opponent. Although it looks like after a single... Nope, there are 2 engineers. 2 T2 engineers, which will be building power and other things. We have a T3 HQ going down in land for Turin. Now, what I would not be surprised at all to see on this is a push for mass Titans. Titans, of course, since they were nerfed less than the other T3 units in the last patch, are quite a bit stronger relative to the other T3 units available to the other factions. Their main advantage is their speed. While they were nerfed slightly, they're still one of the faster T3 units. Those will be able to book it across the map at a tremendous pace and do some excellent raiding damage. They might not be able to get inside the base, although this is a wide enough access point that it is possible, but their damage is going to be done to the expansions, although that looks to be pretty well shut down to begin with. Blodier rocking 26k score versus Turin. They are running neck and neck, and I'm going to click on in here so we can see what's going on. Turin at 66 mass income, 1800 power with 30,000 reclaim, 25,000 reclaim, 53, and 2,800. That is going to put obfuscation quite a bit ahead on power, but behind on total mass potential and reclaim, mostly due to the territory that he is lacking. So hopefully he can get a handle on that before the difference is too great to overcome. DeRosa's Sanctuary is a very difficult map to play, and like I said, it comes out differently just about every single time I see it. Look at the waves of engineers reclaiming across the map. That is stupendous. And on the right, Turin pressuring Blodier back. Not quite able to get things in hand. Obfuscation is at T2. He does have a T2 air factory, which has dropped a transport out. And that is going immediately for T3 air. So, exactly as predicted. He's also getting multiple land factories up and mass extractors claimed on the left side. Small contingent of forces there in order to keep tabs on things. And we do have, it looks like, a T2 support group coming online over here, potentially for some more build power. I know not exactly why, but I'm hoping that we're going to get to see a Zooey drop. No, it is more engineers. T2 transport flying around the outside edge. Of course, a little bit beefier, a little bit better defended, a little bit faster, so T2 is useful. Never mind. That was a T1. Ah, no, T2 is there. I am seeing the wrong things and reacting. I do apologize. 2 engineers on the front, probably for a land factory and then reclaim. And then we've got some additional in on the mass extractor points. So very interesting, shuttling around as engineers for the maximum possible speed coming into effect. And that may be able to catch him up. But I see a huge score jump for Turin, who is working on his second T3 mass extractor, is just about done capping on a lot of his mexes. and is also producing T3 units full speed, and that is indeed a Titan production facility. They do die to T1 point defense, so T1 point defense and wall sections across the front of the base would definitely not be a bad idea, but they are going to absolutely own T1. Huge advantage over T1, both with the micro speed and the amount of damage that they are able to deal. Plus, with the rebalance, the Titan's shield recharges extremely quickly. You can see that. I think it's about every 20 seconds, something like that. So it's basically like having a free veterancy. You lose the shield at 600 HP down, it regens at 20 per second, which is almost the same damage as a T1 tank. So you can basically just take the damage from a T1 tank and not care. And then 20 seconds later, you've got that extra 600 HP back. So very strong as a raiding unit jumping in and out of engagements. Obviously, if you run the Titan in the middle of a T1 force, it will probably still die. If it's a singular Titan, this many Titans in one spot are going to fare much better. But if you hit and run, Titans are nearly unstoppable versus T1. Okay, on the other side of the map, we have got T3 power going down, obfuscation getting into the air game. We do not have either T3 air or T3 power down for Turin, though he has finished his third T3 mechs almost. Yes, that is his fourth coming online, and then another on the other edge. Up in the northern expansion, it looks like we do have pillars coming out, which is a weird choice when you can go for Titans. Perhaps he's feeling the clench of the mass to a certain degree. I would love to see something other than T1 over here. There's a T2 HQ. Why are you upgrading the HQ in the outside expansion? That makes no sense. But we are going to get another T3 power generator over here as a Strat Bomber comes out. So he knows that he is in uncontested control of the air game. That is going to give him a wide open opportunity to hit up some targets with that Strat Bomber, preferably something like the T2 power generators over on this side. Turin is getting another T2 power before he gets his T3. That is going to leave him wide open for a single Strat Bomb right here, killing 2 power generators. I think these two are probably too far apart, but definitely 3 before the shielding can come up. And that is going to put Turin in a world of hurt over his power situation. We've got T1 and T2 point defense going down, so thankfully the Titans did not push hard enough in order to get into the build power here, because that could have ended up in a devastating manner. But this is now going to be a hard point to maintain control of the left side expansion. Here comes the Strat Bomb. Yes, ground attacked directly between the T2 power generators. Flak is coming into play along with 2 Sams and a Cougar. So the one pass is all it gets, but if we zippity-doo-dah in here to Turin's board, you can see he has almost exactly 1,000 power stalled, which was the income that he had from those T2 power generators. So he is now going to be desperately trying to get these things back online. He needs to abandon that build on the T3 P-Gen. That is going to slow him way the hell down. We've got Flak in play over here. Let's take a look at the eco while we're in it. 66,000 mass reclaimed on 196 with power stall. Let's call it 200 income. We've got 200 income, 66,000 reclaimed, 2,800 power. Obfuscation at 7,800 power, 93 mass per tick income, but surviving quite nicely on 56,000 reclaim. Turin is going to beat him up in the late game if he doesn't get his eco on track. That is the one thing that I'm very worried about right now, but for the short term at least, he has caught up quite nicely. Now though, we have a problem. Titans are in the base and they have sighted a T3 power generator. Now, they will probably end up suiciding most of their number in the pursuit of this power generator, and should this Strat Bomber hit... No! That's a double bad pass! You got a ground fire, Bloateer, and all the Titans are dead. Oh, the sacrifice may have been worth it, though. Took out another T2 power generator in the mix, a lot of build power, and the flak is now in place to kill Strat Bombers as Blodeer's build power takes a beating over on the right-hand side. He is going to lose every single one of those factories, all of the build potential that he needed to get the units into the field and contest this, as another T3 power generator threatens to go down. Finally, the Strat Bomber takes a chunk out of it. The pillar is going to go down to a handful of Thams, and that is going to be the end of the base raid, although there is a very dangerous enemy indeed sitting on the front doorstep. Oh my goodness, that pillar actually survived. 60 HP remaining. Bro, you need to kill that son of a gun. We've also got the bomber taking another group of units into the abyss as it turns, avoiding the flak fire. Alright, things have settled down reasonably well. Obfuscation still fairly substantially behind on income and map control, but it's not over till it's over. He's got the T3 air, which means he has air control, at least for the time being. We will probably see, yes, T3 air factory coming into play for Turin Bar. That is going to start pumping out air very shortly indeed, but for now, he has a small advantage at least. Got the T3 power generator almost back up, just got to get that thing built. Really need to finish your T3 mass extractor upgrades. We have 3 in the base, number 4 on the way, as we see chunks of T1 power start being control K'd in order to reclaim the mass from those arrangements. Turin appears to be doing no such thing. He has decided that the T1 power is a critical part of his base, and also if he control K'd it would probably kill all of his engineers. So, gonna have to wait a little while on that one. He does have a T3 ACU, and it looks like, yep, functioning T3 air with multiple T3 power generators to take care of business. This Strat Bomber claiming 22 kills overall, still not able to get a veterancy though, due to the fact that most of them are T1 units. So you've got to get 50% of your mass value in kills in order to get a veterancy in the new balance. Meanwhile, on the south side, we've got Otham's online finally, which will absolutely own Titans in just about any numbers. Lost a single factory up there. No Titan bit the dust this day. And those are going to be able to move on to start claiming some territory. Of course, once the Percivals start rolling, Othams are going to have a bit more of an issue. But for now, that is going to do quite nicely indeed. There's another pass. Strat Bomber is finally going to get shot down. Oh, surviving on 180 HP and flying right into the flak again for its doom. Oh, well, that hero strat did so much damage. I would highly recommend a T2 shield to anyone in this position, especially when you have a heavily damaged T3 power generator. That seems like a bad way to lose a P-gen. I'm also very appreciative of the little flaks that could. These guys are headed up to the front in order to face off versus the Othams. I'm not sure exactly how well they'll fare, though. If we take a look, oh, all their awesome DPS going to waste. Well, a sadder story was never seen. Chaff on the floor, I suppose. Alright, the Othams are going to make a decent enough push. We'll have to see if something can come online to stop them over there, as Blodeer finally gets a little bit of a handle on map control. We do have an Otham over on this side. T3 support factory coming online in order to get some attack units out. Hopefully some mass extractors can be built and some ground can be made up. Although Turin appears to not want that to take place. He has started a strategic missile launcher. He does have the mass for it. He does have the power for it. And I don't think that up to this point Blodeer has scouted it. So we may in fact see this boil down to a nuke rush, something that you don't often see in a 1 versus 1 game, but here we are at 18, almost 19 minutes. This will be a sub 20-minute nuke completion, and with assistance, that'll be about 23 minutes launch in a 1 versus 1. Although I guess it is a heavily reclaimable 20-kilometer map, so this shouldn't be entirely surprising. Something to file away in your knowledge base for the future. We've got 3 T2 transports online, which I'm kind of hoping, just on the offside chance, might pick up some T1 artillery, but no, it looks like they're actually picking up Autumns. Why on earth do I have the hiccups at a time like this? Those are going to fly around, probably to the rear of the base here. Yes, and hit where it hurts. Take some of this mass away. Although, again, if he doesn't scout very, very soon indeed, that is going to be the end of him. We're going to go take a look-see here. Pretty hefty mass stall. That's leaving him 75% complete, so maybe not sub 20 minutes. We go over to Blowdeer. Blowdeer has not scouted in quite a long time at the home base, so he needs to get on top of that for sure, but he did get tanks down in the back. We've got 82,000 reclaim, 168 and 64 for the incomes. This map is 10 by 10, not 20 by 20 according to Plasma. I am very sorry. Apparently I've been calling it a 20 kilometer this entire time. I thought it was a 20k. Maybe it is 10. Turin has got 85,000 reclaim, 275 income, and is still mass stalling. So there is a chance that this nuke will not load. He will have to get his economy in order before that can come into play. Let's get back out here to the main view. One Autumn is down, probably due to point defense and whatnot. But we are going to see some mass extractors lost, some build power lost. Hopefully this T1 PD can go down. It is, yes, taking some damage. There we go. As those Autumns take out yet another T2 mass extractor that will hopefully keep forcing Turin into a heftier and heftier mass stall. But as you can see, the nuke is now loading at full speed. So he has fixed his economy woes. ARAS going down for Blowdeer, who is building a strategic missile defense, which means he has probably scouted. So let's do Alt F2 again and queue that up. Yes, he does have intel on it. So he sees what is a coming and hopefully will be able to stop it. What I'm not, I don't know. Nuke defense builds quicker, is cheaper than a nuke, and the anti-nuke builds in 4 minutes instead of 5. But he needs to get off of that ARAS upgrade, get off of his mass stall, and finish that thing, because otherwise he is going to get nuked upside the head in a hurry. This nuke is already approaching 25% loaded, so this is going to be down to the wire, even if he isn't in ARAS. He needs to get this thing done, and quickly. We've also got, oh, that is nasty. TAC launch! Oh my goodness! He actually got TAC sniped. What even is this game? 22 minutes. An unshielded, out in the open triple TAC launcher that took out the ACU in the home base. Dear Lord. Alright, it is a 10k map because on a 20, TAC missiles would not have that much range, so I stand corrected on that. Dear goodness gracious alive, that was a different game indeed. Congrats to Turin on the cheesiest victory of the tournament so far. Blowdeer, well played, good sir, but you are going to drop down to the losers bracket. With that, this hell of a game ends. That is gonna wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.